Death Stranding predicted the future.
We don't need a country. America's finished.
More specifically, Death Stranding is a game in which director Hideo Kojima envisioned a nightmarish American apocalypse that the real world just happened to catch up to in our Lord's year 2020, going on into 2021. What is the point of this weird world? Well, most people, including its creator, Hideo Kojima, often quote this game as a game about building connections, and I wouldn't blame them, but for those of you unfamiliar, Kojima is a master at layering his messages, and I'd argue that there's something else to uncover here. But to uncover that, we'll first have to uncover the bizarre world of Death Stranding. And in this weird world, a global disaster called the Death Stranding has displaced the few remaining citizens of what used to be America. Ghosts called beached things, or BTs, now wander the landscape, and any contact between a BT and the living triggers a void out. A massive explosion that instantly demolishes or kills anything caught in its wake. When the Death Stranding incident occurred, these voidouts chained together and essentially destroyed the world, leaving society few and far between, with the last holdouts living by themselves in the mountains or the plains, away from the few remaining cities and, more importantly, away from Earth's new parasite, the BTs. Tell me if this next bit sounds familiar. Now, the only way to prevent mass deaths is for everyone to stay at home. With everyone isolated, the only thing connecting them are porters, the delivery people of this world. And these guys have it rough, let me tell you. Trekking through the landscape, rain or snow, on foot, past the BTs, and under threat of the last threat I have to mention, timefall. You may be wondering why the people of Death Stranding live in the mountains and plains, and timefall is the one to blame here. Timefall essentially is an acidic rain that ages everything it touches, including skyscrapers, streets, cars, people, all crumbling and decaying in seconds. And so, the porter's journey is carved through these barren lands, the densely snowed-in mountains, the cracked earth and the desert, and the picturesque plains of a different era brought back into modern times, leaving our porters in most cases treading on foot to their journey's end. Unfortunately, you control one of these porters in Death Stranding, meaning you spend most of your time walking. It is essentially a game centered on moving a character through a rough terrain in the most efficient way possible. Which sounds kind of terrible, right? And maybe more than that, pretty meaningless. But Kojima designs incredible gameplay. This is the man behind Metal Gear. Some of the most tight and explorative exploration of intimate spaces with all sorts of little quirks, where the goal is to destroy nuclear tanks and save the world from terrorists and secret organizations. And here we are just walking back and forth over and over. We can fairly wager someone with the prestige of Kojima wasn't just slacking off with this one, right? There's some sort of meaning here, right? I'm not crazy here, I promise. Viktor Frankl, Holocaust survivor and author, put it like this. Ultimately, man should not ask what the meaning of his life is, but rather must recognize that it is he who is asked. In a word, each man is questioned by life, and he can only answer to life by answering for his own life. With more than half of the US population struggling with thinking beyond their daily to-do lists onto the things that they truly care about, still most of us don't have the luxury of just dropping our work and financial responsibility to pursue our cooler dreams. And that's all assuming you have your cooler dreams figured out, which plenty of people don't. So what are we supposed to do? Zach Mercurio, researcher and writer, argues that the key is intentionality. It is variable, but can be found by every person in every circumstance. Considering what Frankl survived, I'd consider that last part self-evident. Meanwhile, Hubert Dreyfus and Sean Durrance Kelly, authors of All Things Shining, argue that the answer is not to generate meaning, but rather to cultivate in himself the skill of discerning the meanings that are already there. So, in Death Stranding, we are simply picking up packages and walking somewhere to drop them off, but we are serving a role most people can't afford to. We're delivering the means of survival to those stranded in their homes, people who wouldn't be able to survive without us, and without those people, how would the world survive? So, every step, every tilt and tumble, every trudge through timefall and every bridge laid down carries with it the fate of humanity. But then there's us. How do we find that same level of understanding? First, you must know the significance of the task to another person. Second, you must be able to identify how that task fits into a bigger outcome. And third, you had to be able to see how you could use your pre-existing strengths to accomplish it. Now, let's go back to something from earlier. That whole connection thing, right? Society is a fragile thing. It's small and funny, but volatile. Many of us don't know what we should be doing amongst this chaos. Kojima said in interviews before the release, "I always feel so lonely." There are so many people who play games feeling like that, like they don't belong in society. They don't really feel comfortable. The world is beautiful, but you're small, just a tiny speck. You feel hopeless and helpless and powerless. You feel so lonely. Somewhere down the line in the story of this game, we're told that we didn't have to cut all ties and walk away. And this was like Kojima grabbed a mirror and held it in front of my face until something disgusting assembled itself. Over the past year, I've cut a lot of ties, not all at once, but just piece by piece, really unintentionally. Mostly because of my work naturally drawing lines between myself and my friends, but also because I wanted to explore myself, and for a long time I really didn't know how to. It was nice. It was liberating. It was scary. Freedom has a cost, and the cost here? What does this Brandon look like in 10 years? Friendless? Beliefless? Not alone, but not connected to anyone of real authenticity? Making connections isn't always easy, don't get me wrong, but rarely is it as hard as preserving the real ones. Real connections require an authenticity that is rough around the edges, a roughness that catches on fragility, unintentionally but unforgivingly. Authentic connections require authentic people, a rare resource in a world where everyone has the ability to withdraw from any challenging conversation. And so those connections are something to treasure. And I was just throwing all of mine away. And so that was the truth that Death Stranding showed me. In other words, it taught me that prefer to look after others turns out better in the long run. At least to me, that was my hidden meaning in the bizarre world of Death Stranding. Hey, thanks for making it all the way to the end of the video. Obviously this video is about Death Stranding, not even recent fascination of mine. Look at this badass art book, it's gold, it's pretty cool. I'll show y'all, but it'd be like pirating the book or whatever. Oh, look, I give you a little sneak peek. Anyway, yeah, I love this game. Kind of been wanting to make a video about it for a while, but just didn't. Kind of like didn't have my voice yet. I feel like I finally felt confident enough to have one. But up next, I already know. I'm talking about Yakuza again. Gonna be a different take on Yakuza because that's how much I love it. I can keep talking about Yakuza forever and ever and ever. So anyway, thank you all for watching the video. You know, beard looks good, right? I know. Anyway. If you liked it, subscribe, usual shit. And I'll catch you in about a month.